seeking justice 9 years after the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. The trial of 4 Hezbollah suspects begins at The Hague, but will it bring closure to a troubled chapter in Lebanon's history, or further inflame sectarian tensions? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to this edition of Inside Story. I'm Laura Kyle. It was a political assassination that sent sectarian shockwaves through Lebanon and the region. The murder of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. The billionaire businessman was among 22 people killed by a truck bomb in Beirut on February the 14th, 2005. 9 years later, the trial of 4 members of the Shia political group Hezbollah has begun. The case is being heard before a UN-backed court at The Hague in the Netherlands. The suspects are accused of conspiracy to commit terrorism and murder, but none of them is in court. That's because Hezbollah has refused to hand them over. A 5th suspect was charged late last year. Lebanon has a history of political assassinations for which no one has ever been held accountable. The trial in The Hague opened against a backdrop of more sectarian violence in a country where the Syrian war has spilled over with increasing frequency. Even as the hearing began, a car bomb exploded in the Hezbollah stronghold of Hermel in northern Lebanon, close to the border with Syria. To our guests in just a moment. First, here's Andy Gallagher with more on the Special Tribunal for Lebanon.
It was one of the most dramatic political assassinations in the Middle East.
This photograph was taken on the day of the explosion.
And the death of former Prime Minister Rafik Hariri in 2005 tore Lebanese society apart. The billionaire businessman was a Sunni leader. The 5 men charged with his murder belonged to the Shia-armed political group Hezbollah. And there are now fears that the high-profile trial in the Netherlands will again heighten tensions. But Hariri's son Saad says it's an important step.
Today, for the first time, this act of terror that happened in Lebanon, hopefully we'll see the time of impunity ending and the time of justice coming.
Prosecutors say they have enough evidence to begin the trial, even though the men accused have never been arrested and won't be in court. It's thought they'll use eyewitness accounts as well as data from mobile phone networks that is said to track the movements of the bombers. Hezbollah, a powerful group in Lebanon, says the trial is part of an international conspiracy and they won't cooperate. The group denies all charges, but this is the first time one of Lebanon's long list of political crimes is being prosecuted, and for some, that's progress.
You have a lot of people here in Lebanon that this is political tribunal and etc., etc. But for us, we think it's a very serious tribunal. It was a very serious inquiry.
The special tribunal has given rise to fierce debate in Lebanon, a nation sharply divided between support for Hezbollah and the March the 14th movement that was set up following Hariri's death. The verdict of the court, then, is unlikely to heal divisions in Lebanon, no matter what the outcome. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera.
Let's bring in our guests now. In Beirut, Kasim Kher, an MP with Saad Hariri's Future Movement, the largest member of the March 14 alliance. In Tunis, we have Nicholas No, a scholar and author. And also joining us from Beirut is Ahmed Mousali, a professor of political science at the American University in Beirut. Thank you all very much for joining us here today. My first question to you, Kasim Kher. The prosecutor said in his opening statement at the tribunal a few hours ago that no one in Lebanon could fail to be affected by this attack on Hariri. Kasim, what does the start of this trial mean to you?
Actually, it means to us, all of the Lebanese people, it means to the Lebanese people, it means to me as a politician, as a young politician who is dreaming of a democratic Lebanon with, where you can have freedom of speech and you will not be afraid of assassinations and murders. It means to us, to Lebanese people, it means the dream of Rafik Hariri to build Lebanon, the country of constitution, the country of freedom, the country of coexistence, The start of this tribunal is a dream, and it's a historic moment for all the Lebanese people. We have been being attacked as politicians in Lebanon since years. It's not only an assassination of former Prime Minister Rafik Hariri. We had so many assassinations since tens of years, and now we believe it's the first time we're going to reach real justice. We as a political party, we don't need vengeance or revenge. What we need, or what we're seeking for, is justice and punishment for those who did this crime. And this is actually, as I said, a historical day for not only Lebanon, it's also a historical day for the Arab world.
Okay.
Since it's the first tribunal, special tribunal for political assassinations in the Arab world. And Lebanon has been for years a land for political interference from countries in the region and all over the world. Since we had a civil war in Lebanon, and after the civil war, we haven't had years of stability. And we believe that
Ahmed Musali, I want to bring you in at this point, because we haven't heard any comment from Hezbollah at the start of this tribunal today. What's their take on it?
Well, I think first of all, the Hezbollah's position on the tribunal is very clear, and they reject it. And two, we had a bombing today also in Hermel, and I think they have been preoccupied with it at this moment or today. However, it is obvious for them that this is a political tribunal coordinated by different world powers in order to corner Hezbollah, Syria, and Iran. At the time of the composition of the tribunal, and even before, with the starting of the commission with Detlef Melis and the arrest of 3 heads of security apparatuses who were not accused actually by anyone, was for them at least an indication that this is going to be a political trial. 2, the court itself took all of the powers that the Lebanese judiciary and other powers as well have in order to prosecute the different opposition. One more point is that the Hezbollah sent the trial through different channels, different information on the assassination of the Hariri, at least what's called the group of 13, who were still now in Lebanese prisons, but they were never, who acknowledged that they killed Hariri, but who were never persecuted. They also, according to them, sent information that Israel is behind the assassination, and that the commission and then the court did not even entertain that there is a possibility other than Hezbollah that did it.
Nicholas, let's bring you in at this point, because we've got 2 very clearly opposing views here. We've got Kasim, who has very high hopes that this is going to bring justice. Ahmed, they're dismissing it as a very political tribunal. What's your view of it?
Well, I think in general it's a sad day for the case of the righteous cause of international justice. I think the points that Professor Musali was making were points, politicization of this trial, which the STL and the whole process stepped into from almost the get-go. This whole process from really the beginning has been really marred and tainted by negligence, by outright recklessness in some cases, and a real lack of professionalization. The Security Council established this body with the specific mandate to adhere to the highest standards of international justice. And I think the track record of the STL from its inception has just been pretty terrible. And it's fallen right into that trap that is understandable in the Middle East, that has seen so many conspiracies and so many different hands in the pot. It has fallen right into that trap of easily being accused by its opponents of being politicized. And I think we've seen that virtually throughout the process, whether you look at how the tribunal was actually formed, the original investigations, the leaks, the other problems with the lowering of evidentiary standards. All of these things have really created the core problem, which is that for many Lebanese, and I won't speculate how many, but for many Lebanese and some people in the region, this court has very little legitimacy. I'll just say as a last point that it didn't have to be this way. And that's the critical point. That's the critical point, I think, for the people that want justice and to end impunity in Lebanon.
I want to just give Kasim a chance to respond to that, because we've got two very strong opinions against this tribunal. Kasim, you were very much in support of it at the beginning. What's your response?
Yes. You have to give me now time to answer both. So I'll have a short time, chance.
Because we don't have a huge amount of time in total.
No, actually, the issue is that Hezbollah was against this tribunal from the first day. And before even having the leaks and anything related to what they were saying. So this position was taken from the first day that the 14th of March wanted to have the tribunal and the international tribunal. And what I want to say also is that Milosevic said the same words that we're hearing today before he was arrested. And he said that it's a political tribunal. And he said the same words about the tribunal for previous Yugoslavia. So we're facing the same issues, and the history is repeating itself.
Okay, but what about these accusations that it's made too many mistakes, that it's too vulnerable to these sorts of accusations?
What is needed today is that Hezbollah hand in the four people who are suspects, and they should prove themselves that they're innocent. We know that the defenders are innocent until they're proven guilty, and if they are very sure that they are not guilty, then they can prove themselves, especially with this big or huge amount of debate or of trying to put obstacles against the justice and against the truth. All we need is the truth in this assassination, and all we need is justice and punishment for those who did this and who
I'm going to
took Lebanon into this problem.
I have also another... Just come back to you in a moment. First of all, I just want to remind viewers about the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, or STL as we've heard it called, because it does have a number of distinctive features. It was established by the UN in 2007 at Lebanon's request to deal specifically with the Hariri attack. The UN-backed court is the first of its kind to deal with terrorism as a distinct crime. It's also the first international tribunal to try crimes under national law, and in this case, Lebanese law. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has dismissed the tribunal as a US-Israeli conspiracy, and he's refused to hand over the suspects, saying no Lebanese government will be able to make any arrests, whether in 30 days, 30 years, or even 300 years. Ahmed Musali, Kasim's point there. Where are the suspects and why aren't they facing this trial?
But I want to say one point. I mean, he said they have to prove themselves to be innocent. No, the court has to prove that they are guilty. I mean, it's the other way around, actually. And to begin with the assumption, which was the assumption of the court from the very beginning, and even when we had the pre-court commission, Hezbollah was accused from day one that it is behind the assassination. And the court was created on the assumption that it will follow in that line. And of course, this court is political. I mean, who is denying that? I mean, you cannot deny it is political. Maybe the procedures and so forth could be non-political, but obviously those who created the court had in mind at that point in time to corner Hezbollah, Syria, and Iran. So it is the court, actually the prosecutor of the court, that has to prove that they are guilty.
But why aren't the suspects going to the court to prove they're innocent?
Because, as I said, the Hezbollah believes that it is a political issue. It is not a judicial issue or a pure judicial issue, especially given that the accusation of Hezbollah was published in Israeli and German newspapers before even the accusation was made by the court. All of the court works has been actually getting out in one way or another before the court even thought of who is going to be charged.
Nicholas, just if I could bring you in here, because are these 5 men the right people to be going after in the first place?
I have no idea if these 5 men are the right people to go after. I can address the political point, which is that had this process have been more credible, Hezbollah would have been hard-pressed to do what it's doing now in terms of refusing to hand over these suspects. Hezbollah has successfully convinced enough of its constituencies, enough of its broader public, that this is a politicized trial such that it doesn't have to feel the political pressure to send these guys to this particular trial. And that, again, goes back to the key point of the original failings of this whole process and why we're in an absentia trial right now. I'd raise a critical point, which the MP overlooked, which is that Hezbollah, at key moments in that first year or 2 years, cooperated with the tribunal. Indeed, it helped to pass parts of the critical legal motions to move the tribunal forward. It allowed itself to be investigated. It gave interviews. So this represented a unique opportunity, a real opportunity, to have a process that brought Hezbollah in and that created a fair, transparent, open judicial process to end impunity, or to start to end impunity in Lebanon. The problem is, again, and I would not blame the Future Movement, the supporters of Saad Hariri, nor would I necessarily blame Hezbollah for their actions. I think that really the situation on the ground, you have to remember in 2005 and 2006, was such that pro-Hariri politicians were getting blown up all over Lebanon. On the flip side, by the summer of 2006, you have a 33-day Israeli-led assault on Lebanon, which kills more than 1,200 Lebanese and numerous Hezbollah people as well. This was a climate of real war. It was a climate also, we can't forget, during the sort of heyday of the Bush administration, which at that time had more than 150,000 troops in Iraq, on Syria's border, on Iran's border, and there was a serious discussion and serious concerns about a wider US military assault in the region. In that context, the Bush administration, as we now basically know from WikiLeaks, from also interviews with US officials and other sources, the US really pushed this tribunal in a very aggressive and a very political way, such that many mistakes were made, such that it was very easy for Hezbollah at a certain point to pull out of the process and reject it totally.
Nicholas, you raise a very important point there, which I want to explore a bit further. The number of assassinations that we see in Lebanon, particularly political killings. There have been more than a dozen high-profile assassinations since Rafik Hariri's death alone. The latest was the former finance minister, Mohammed Shati. Remember that he was killed in a car bomb attack in December, very close to the site where Hariri was killed. He was an advisor to Rafik's son, Saad Hariri, and a critic of Syria and Hezbollah. Sunni, Christian, Druze and Hezbollah figures have all been targeted, as well as members of the army and security forces, but as yet, no one has been held accountable for their deaths. Kasim, do you think that this trial can bring an end to this culture of impunity there in Lebanon? Or, as Nicholas says, has it just made too many mistakes to be credible?
First of all, I just want to answer Mr. Ahmed Musalli and regarding the issue that the Hezbollah was trying to, or was helping the tribunal from the first day. Actually, in 2006, when the previous cabinet of former Prime Minister Fuad Sanyura was voting for the STL, the members of cabinet who are representing Hezbollah left the cabinet and withdrew. And at the same time, the parliament stopped working for 2 years to stop the law from going into the parliament, because 14th of March we had the majority in the parliament, and they knew that it's gonna pass through the parliament. Moreover, if we want to talk about
after the war.
Yeah, but this was before the STL was formed. Anyway, and regarding the issue that Hezbollah, regarding the issue that Hezbollah is not gonna hand in the suspects because the tribunal is an American or a political, we have a suspect in Lebanon who the Lebanese tribunal is accusing him of a suspect of trying to kill MP Boutros Harb.
Okay,
and he wasn't
I'm
handed
going to jump in here because I want to throw this discussion forward. We are running out of time. And Ahmed, I want to look at a scenario where there is a conviction against these 4, possibly 5 suspects. What impact do you think that's going to have on Lebanon?
Well, actually, the original purpose of assassinating Prime Minister Hariri is to raise the tension between the Shia and the Sunni. And I think those who assassinated him and continued in the assassination of other important politicians in Lebanon, and now the bombings we are seeing all over Lebanon, is going to raise further and further the tension in Lebanon between the Sunni and the Shia. And that has been the goal all over from the very beginning. And now we are seeing the materialization of that. And we are seeing it not only in Lebanon, but throughout the area, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, and other places as well. This court is going to be the cause of probably more, I don't want to say war, but probably more conflicts and more splits within the Lebanese society and state. And in the sense that we are going to go through a period of much unrest. Anyway, the court is not going to be very fast. It's going to take years and years in order to arrive at a valid conviction. And we are still at the very, very beginning of a process that's going to be tedious, difficult, and, and it could be resolved or dissolved as well by a political agreement between world powers.
Okay, I'm going to have to move on to Nicholas because I want to get a final thought as to whether this tribunal is going to heal Lebanon, as Kasim hopes, or whether it's going to inflame tensions and do the country more harm.
I think right now you have to put the trial into perspective. There are more than 130,000 dead people in Syria. There are car bombs on an almost weekly basis and other terrorist activities affecting Lebanon, Syria, the wider region. In that context, I don't think this trial particularly adds to the flames or to coming to the edge and the tipping point at all. It was once conceived as that, but everything's changed with the massive level of violence that's engulfing the region. I would just ask a final point to the honourable MP. Perhaps he can have 15 seconds or 30
I'm sorry,
seconds
we don't actually have time for that. I just need to get a final, I'm sorry, we do have to get a final point and a final thought from Kasim, because he started hoping that this court would bring about responsibility for the killers of Hariri, that it would help heal Lebanese society. Is that your thought, or do you have a fear that it is going to harm it as well?
I believe the tribunal is going to help in justice in terms of future. It's going to put an end to impunity, and it's going to help for future generations to live in Lebanon, a coexistence country where you have freedom of speech and you have stability. But the issue is that we have another problem, as you said. The war in Syria, which is nearly 3 years now, has had a spillover effect on Lebanon. in terms of social and economic. But nowadays, after Hezbollah interfered in Syria directly in the war, we are having more than a spillover effect. We are having a direct relation between the war in Syria and the situation in Lebanon.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, we are going to have to leave it there. I want to thank all of you very much for joining us today. Kazem Kir, Nicholas No and Ahmed Musali. And a reminder that you can find this show and many more at aljazeera.com. Just follow the links for the shows and an inside story. Thanks very much for watching from me and the whole team here. Bye for now.